On January 20th, the world witnessed a moment no one saw coming. Donald Trump took the oath of office for his second term, but all eyes weren't just on him. His youngest son, Barron Trump, stole the show. Standing at an incredible 6 feet 9 inches, he carried himself with a newfound confidence that left the crowd speechless. His transformation even brought his parents to tears. Melania Trump, standing beside him, was visibly moved. This wasn't just another inauguration moment, it was the arrival of a young man stepping into his own spotlight. Barron's presence that day was nothing short of captivating. For Melania, seeing her once little boy towering beside his father was overwhelming. She had spent years shielding him from the chaos of fame, making sure he had as normal a childhood as possible despite the media frenzy surrounding their family. And now, there he was, composed, self-assured, and ready to embrace the future. It was a powerful reminder of just how much he had grown, both physically and personally. Born into a life of unimaginable luxury, Barron grew up in the opulent Trump Tower penthouse, surrounded by marble floors, gold-plated everything, and stunning views of Manhattan. While his older siblings were already making waves in business and public life, Barron was still just a kid, balancing a world of privilege with the down-to-earth upbringing his mother insisted on. Melania had always been determined to keep him grounded. Unlike Donald, who thrived in the media spotlight, she took a more hands-on approach, prioritizing stability, discipline, and independence over public attention. She wanted him to grow into his own person with his own opinions and choices. Her efforts paid off. By the time he started school, he was already fluent in Slovenian, thanks to her commitment to keeping him connected to her heritage. She also encouraged his creativity, with Barron taking up drumming as a young boy. She often described him as a strong, smart kid who loved to learn. But being the son of one of the most talked-about figures in American history wasn't easy. Even as a child, Barron found himself the subject of media speculation. To protect him, Melania worked hard to keep him out of the spotlight. She even delayed moving to the White House in 2017 so he could finish his school year in New York, ensuring some sense of normality. Life in Trump Tower was a strange mix of glamour and isolation. While his older siblings, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, were deeply involved in the family business, Barron's world revolved around school, hobbies, and time with his mother. With Donald constantly busy, much of the parenting fell to Melania. Even Trump himself admitted, "She's an unbelievable mother." Though he lived a sheltered life, there were glimpses of Barron's playful, curious nature in his rare public appearances. But on that January day in 2025, the world saw something different. A confident young man stepping out of the shadows, ready to make his own mark. As Barron grew older, his quiet and reserved nature became more noticeable. Unlike other members of the Trump family who thrived in the spotlight, Barron preferred to stay away from the chaos of press conferences and campaign events. Melania's influence played a big role in this, especially when it came to his education. She carefully selected private, academically rigorous schools that provided a structured and controlled environment. In interviews, she often emphasized how much his education meant to her, saying, "His studies are my #1 priority." By all accounts, Barron was a bright and thoughtful child, but he also inherited some of his father's boldness. His impressive height drew attention early on, and even as a little boy, Donald jokingly referred to him as vicious, a playful nod to his fiery personality. This unique mix of shyness and strength became a defining part of his early years. Growing up as Donald Trump's youngest son undoubtedly shaped Barron's life in ways he probably didn't fully grasp at the time. With privilege came scrutiny, and with scrutiny came expectations most kids never have to face. But under Melania's watchful eye, he slowly grew into a quiet yet determined young man, one who was observant but also strong-willed. The early years planted the seeds of the transformation that would later unfold. His reserved nature, combined with the values his mother instilled in him, set the stage for the poised and confident person he would become. As Melania once put it, "Raising a child is the most important job we'll ever have." Little did anyone know that those formative years in Trump Tower were just the calm before the storm, a quiet beginning that would eventually lead to a jaw-dropping moment that even left Donald and Melania in tears. Moving to Washington brought an entirely new set of challenges. Barron's life changed dramatically in 2017 when his father became the 45th President of the United States. Leaving behind the familiar comforts of Trump Tower for the White House wasn't just about swapping one home for another, it was about stepping into an entirely different world, one filled with intense public scrutiny. At just 10 years old, his once private life was suddenly placed under a magnifying glass. Every move he made, from his expressions to his body language, became a topic of discussion. This shift, which played out on one of the world's biggest stages, became another defining moment in Barron's remarkable journey. The transition wasn't easy for a child who had been shielded from public attention for most of his life. One of the first major challenges he faced was the relentless commentary about his demeanor. His quiet nature was often misinterpreted, sparking rumors and harsh criticism. One particularly cruel incident happened not long after Donald Trump's inauguration, when a Saturday Night Live writer tweeted a tasteless joke suggesting that Barron might become a homeschool shooter. The tweet was quickly deleted, but the damage had already been done. The controversy made one thing painfully clear: even a child wasn't safe from the harsh realities of the political world surrounding his father. The scrutiny didn't end there. In 2016, Barron became the focus of intense media speculation after a viral video suggested he might have autism. Comedian Rosie O'Donnell shared the clip during an ongoing feud with Donald Trump, pointing to his behavior at public events as supposed evidence. Melania wasted no time in responding. She took legal action to have the video removed and publicly called out the attempt to drag her son into political drama. "There's absolutely nothing wrong with autism," she said. "But this is a private matter and an unfounded claim." Despite her efforts, the rumors didn't go away easily, and the backlash led to real-life bullying and online harassment. But the pressure on Barron wasn't just from the media. Life at the White House brought its own set of challenges. When he started attending St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Maryland, he suddenly had to juggle being both a regular student and the president's son. With Secret Service protection always around, blending in with his classmates was next to impossible. Some of his peers remembered him as polite and friendly, but also reserved, often keeping to himself. As if that wasn't enough, even his fashion choices became a talking point. When Barron was photographed in casual clothes while out with his parents, some critics slammed him for not looking presidential. While these comments might have seemed trivial, they only added to the endless scrutiny that made it tough for him to just be a normal kid. Through it all, Melania stood firmly by his side. Her Be Best campaign, which focused on children's well-being and cyberbullying, was partly driven by her desire to create a safer space for Barron. She often spoke about the importance of kindness and protecting kids from harsh public criticism. "No child should ever feel frightened, bullied, or isolated," she said. But no matter how hard she tried, the Trump family's high-profile status meant Barron could never fully escape the spotlight. On top of the relentless attention, he also had to deal with constant rumors about his parents' marriage, his father's controversial presidency, and even threats against the family. In 2023, a woman was arrested for sending a letter threatening to harm both Donald and Barron Trump, a chilling reminder of the risks that came with their fame. For Donald and Melania, these moments were stark proof of what their son had to endure, making his transformation all the more powerful. Then came the turning point, Barron's teenage years. This chapter of his life was all about navigating the fine line between public scrutiny and the private world his family worked so hard to protect. After his father left the White House in 2021, things shifted once again as the family moved to Florida. Barron enrolled at Oxbridge Academy in West Palm Beach, stepping into a new school with fresh opportunities and challenges. At Oxbridge, he stayed true to his naturally quiet personality. His classmates described him as polite but private, someone who preferred small, low-key conversations over the buzz of school events. He wasn't one to show up at dances, football games, or big social gatherings. Instead, he focused on his studies and personal interests. But despite keeping a low profile, there was one thing that made him impossible to ignore: his towering height. By the time he was 16, he had grown to an impressive 6'7". His presence was commanding, but his demeanor remained modest. As the son of a former president, security was a constant part of his life. Secret Service agents accompanied him to and from school, a necessity that set him apart from his peers. Even within the school, additional measures were taken to ensure his safety and privacy. For instance, he was listed under a pseudonym in school records to protect him from potential cyber threats. While these precautions were essential, they were also a constant reminder of the extraordinary circumstances surrounding his life. During this time, Barron carved out a space for himself through his personal interests. Soccer became a central part of his life. The beautiful game offered a sense of normalcy amidst the complexities of his world. He played for youth teams during his time in Washington and continued his involvement with the sport after moving to Florida. Gaming was another passion that captured Barron's attention. As a teenager, he became known among his close circle for his love of technology and video games. This interest allowed him to connect with friends and provided a creative escape from the pressures of his public life. His fascination with technology hinted at a curious and innovative mind, qualities that would later shape his approach to adulthood. Also in this period, rare glimpses of Barron in public often became the subject of intense speculation. Whether it was his height, his quiet composure, or his resemblance to his father, the media couldn't resist trying to piece together the story of Donald Trump's youngest son. However, Barron remained largely unaffected by the attention. As Barron entered his later teenage years, his transformation began to take shape. Those close to him noticed subtle changes in his demeanor. He started to exude a quiet confidence, a sure sign that he was beginning to embrace his identity while navigating the unique pressures of being a Trump. Though he remained reserved in public, some moments hinted at the poised young man he was becoming. One such incident came during his father's 2024 presidential campaign. For the first time, Barron took on an active role. He advised Donald Trump on how to connect with younger voters. Barron recommended appearances on popular podcasts and online platforms, demonstrating a keen understanding of modern media and its influence on his generation. While his contributions remained behind the scenes, they were pivotal in shaping the campaign's outreach strategy. Barron's involvement revealed his intelligence and ability to adapt. This newfound confidence extended to his personal life as well. As he approached adulthood, Barron began to show signs of stepping out from the shadows of his family. His interactions with classmates became more frequent, and his natural sense of humor endeared him to those who got to know him. While still guarded in many ways, Barron's willingness to engage with others signaled a shift in his approach to life. By the time Barron graduated from Oxbridge Academy in 2024, he had grown into a young man who was both grounded and ambitious. His reserved nature had evolved into a quiet strength, and his towering height and polished demeanor made him stand out in any crowd. Though he was still discovering his path, it was clear that he was ready to embrace the next chapter of his life. Little did the world know, these experiences were quietly preparing him for a moment that would command the attention of millions and solidify his transformation into the confident individual who stood tall beside his father. At the 2025 inauguration, the moment that stole the spotlight wasn't just Donald Trump taking the oath of office. It was the unexpected transformation of his youngest son, Barron. The event, meant to mark the beginning of Trump's second term as president, became a defining moment for Barron, whose evolution from a reserved teenager into a poised young man was on full display. As he stood alongside his family, his quiet confidence was impossible to ignore, and both Donald and Melania were seen shedding quiet tears of pride. Barron's polished appearance was the first thing to catch the public's attention. Dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit, a crisp white shirt, and a sleek red tie, he exuded an air of maturity that few had seen before. His hairstyle, slicked back in a refined look reminiscent of his older brothers, Donald Jr. and Eric, further emphasized his transformation. The once private boy now had the demeanor of someone ready to step into his own. Standing tall amidst the grandeur of the historic day, he held himself with a composed ease that made it clear he had grown into a confident young man. As the Trump family took their places during the inaugural proceedings, all eyes seemed to gravitate toward Barron. His height, now a striking 6'7", was impossible to ignore and symbolic of the presence he now commanded. Even in moments of stillness, he seemed to effortlessly hold the audience's gaze. But the moment that truly stole the spotlight came when Donald Trump introduced his family during his speech. Turning toward his youngest son, the newly elected president couldn't resist a lighthearted comment that drew laughter and applause from the crowd. "I have a very tall son named Barron," Donald quipped. "Has anyone ever heard of him?" The audience erupted in cheers. For a brief moment, Barron looked caught off guard, but then he broke into a shy smile before raising his hand in acknowledgement. But it wasn't just his father's words that charmed the crowd. It was Barron's own response. As the cheers grew louder, he leaned forward slightly and cupped his hand to his ear, encouraging the audience to cheer even more. The gesture was strikingly reminiscent of his father's own crowd-rousing tactics, and showed a playful yet composed side of Barron that few had seen before. The crowd responded with chants of "Barron, Barron," and his parents were visibly moved by the moment. His interactions didn't end there. Throughout the inaugural events, Barron was seen graciously shaking hands with various dignitaries, including Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Joe Biden. These moments left a lasting impression. His politeness and maturity were evident, and his gestures of respect stood out in a day filled with ceremony and tradition. Observers noted how seamlessly Barron handled the attention, a stark contrast to the shy child seen at Donald Trump's first inauguration in 2017. Back then, he had appeared reserved and uncertain. Now, he embraced the moment with a calm confidence that reflected years of growth. Even his body language spoke volumes. During the inaugural parade, Barron walked alongside his family, waving to the crowd with ease. At one point, he mimicked one of his father's signature gestures, raising his fist in a show of solidarity with the cheering onlookers. It was a moment that encapsulated his transformation, a subtle nod to the family legacy, while still making the gesture his own. Social media instantly lit up with commentary about his evolution, with many noting how far he had come from the quiet boy who once avoided the limelight. Barron Trump, once known for his reserved nature, had now stepped into the public eye in a way no one had expected. His transformation from an observant child to a confident young man had been years in the making. But on this historic day, it was clear. He was no longer just Donald Trump's youngest son. He was his own person, ready to embrace whatever came next. Barron Trump is the future of the Trump dynasty. At least that's what many people were saying after his striking presence at the 2025 inauguration. For Melania Trump, the moment was deeply emotional. Standing beside her son, she appeared visibly moved as the crowd chanted his name. Having spent years shielding Barron from the relentless public eye, this moment felt like a culmination of her efforts. She had guided him through the unique challenges of growing up as a Trump, and now, in front of the world, he stood tall and confident. It was clear that Barron's transformation was not just a personal milestone. It symbolized the next chapter for the entire Trump family. The moment left Donald, Melania, and the world in awe of the young man he had become. Watching their youngest son step into adulthood has been an emotional journey for Donald and Melania Trump. Over the years, they have seen Barron evolve from a quiet, shy boy into a poised and self-assured young man. With that growth comes a bittersweet realization. The child they worked so hard to protect is no longer a boy. He is now a young adult, ready to take on the world on his own terms. For Melania, Barron's journey is especially personal. From the moment he was born, she took it upon herself to shield him from the pressures of their family name. "Raising Barron has been the most important role in my life," she once said, and her devotion to him has been evident in the sacrifices she made. Now, as Barron embraces his independence, Melania reflects on the journey with pride, mixed with a hint of melancholy. She often speaks about the values she instilled in him: respect, discipline, and independence. Values that are now evident in his quiet confidence and composed demeanor. But as she watches him step into adulthood, she can't help but feel the inevitable pang of letting go. "Every parent experiences this moment," she shared. "You want your child to grow and succeed, but it's hard to watch them step away." Barron has always been her focus, and now she must trust that he is ready to stand on his own. While she remains a steady source of support, Melania acknowledges that her role is shifting. Her once hands-on approach is evolving into something new, one where she offers guidance from a distance while allowing Barron to make his own choices. Donald Trump's reflections on Barron's growth are equally emotional, though expressed in his signature style. He has always had a soft spot for his youngest son, frequently praising his intelligence and potential. Donald often marvels at Barron's maturity and his ability to navigate the complexities of their high-profile life. "Barron's got a great head on his shoulders," Donald remarked during a recent interview. "He's smart, he's strong, and he's got a unique way of looking at things. Honestly, he amazes me sometimes." He has also hinted at the possibility of Barron taking on a leadership role within the Trump legacy. While he doesn't pressure him to follow a specific path, he remains confident that Barron will make a name for himself in whatever field he chooses, whether in business, politics, or something entirely different. "He doesn't have to follow in anyone's footsteps," Donald said. "He's got his own ideas, his own talents, and I know he's going to do something big." As Barron becomes more independent, both Donald and Melania are adjusting to their evolving roles as parents. For Melania, it means stepping back while ensuring Barron knows she is always there for him. For Donald, it's an opportunity to support his son's ambitions while celebrating the man he has become. In many ways, Barron's transformation has brought the Trump family even closer. His journey serves as a reminder of the importance of resilience and unity, values that Donald and Melania have worked hard to uphold despite the pressures of public life. As Barron steps fully into adulthood, the question remains: will he carve out his own identity, or will the weight of the Trump name shape his future? One thing is certain: his next steps will be watched by millions.